The sound of a luxury truck crumpling against solid steel still echoes in my head. Steam coolant and smoke filled the air while our HOA president, Karen Morrison, the woman who thought she owned the county, stumbled out in front of dozens of witnesses. That was the moment her empire of fake authority collapsed. But before I got to see her humiliated in front of cameras and neighbors, I had to live through weeks of harassment, fear, and the kind of small-town politics that can make you question your own sanity. I'd just retired after 30 years in construction. I bought myself 15 acres outside Pine Hollow, Texas, a place I thought was far enough away from HOA nonsense. My dream was simple, quiet mornings, black coffee on the porch, and no one telling me what shade of blue my pickup should be. Day 1 of retirement. I got my first dose of reality. Karen, rolled up in her BMW SUV, polished smug smile plastered on her face, and after giving me the kind of fake compliment that felt more like an inspection, she drove straight through my brand-new cedar gate. Didn't even slow down. Just splinters everywhere like she'd been using her German luxury vehicle as a bulldozer. I stood there, coffee in hand, jaw on the floor, watching her taillights disappear down my driveway like she owned it. When I called Sheriff Collins, he gave me the kind of tired sigh that says, "Don't expect much." Karen's got friends, he muttered, basically telling me I'd better take the legal route if I wanted anything done. Legal route. The woman had just committed vehicular assault on my property, but apparently in Pine Hollow, Karen was untouchable. I spent the rest of that day digging into my lumber stash, fixing what she'd destroyed. Reinforced everything, braced the posts, thinking maybe she'd gotten her message across and that would be the end of it. Yeah, right. Next morning, 7:45 sharp, I heard the crunch again. This time, my reinforced gate bent sideways like a broken jaw. She just kept driving like wrecking my property was part of her morning commute. Day after day, it became routine. Karen rams, I repair, and every call to the sheriff went nowhere. By day 4, a man in an expensive suit knocked on my door. David Hartwell, attorney at law, specialist in HOA disputes. Confident handshake cards printed in glossy ink. "I can solve your problem permanently," he said, sounding a little too rehearsed. He showed me papers filled with legal jargon, easements, access rights, community development. I wanted peace, so I signed, trusting that someone professional would finally shut Karen down. But that night, my neighbor Rick called. "You know that lawyer you hired? I've seen him at HOA meetings sitting next to Karen, whispering in her ear like they're partners." My stomach dropped. Had I just paid to help her steal my own land? Karen escalated fast. She didn't just smash gates anymore. She brought a clipboard squad, so-called HOA inspectors, taking photos of my repairs like they were evidence of violations. Then came the surveying crew's tape measures and soil samples like they already owned the place. Karen stood there smiling, narrating her vision of community improvements, walking trails, shared gardens, recreational centers, gesturing across my pasture like she was pitching to investors. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Smart property owners cooperate. Resistance brings complications." The sweetness in her voice barely hid the threat. That night, Rick called again, whispering like someone might be listening. He told me about the Hendersons' neighbors who'd resisted Karen 2 years ago. First, their water line got cut. Then, their septic system failed. A week before they sold, their barn mysteriously burned down. Officially, electrical malfunction. Unofficially, the fire marshal was Karen's brother-in-law. The Hendersons didn't just sell cheap, they fled terrified. My blood turned cold. Was I next? I started questioning myself. Maybe I was being stubborn. Maybe one property wasn't worth all this trouble. Was I insane to stand against someone who clearly had half the county under her thumb? Every morning at 7:45, when I heard another crunch of wood and metal, I felt smaller, weaker. I thought maybe I should just give up, cut my losses, and leave. But that's when Martha showed up. An independent attorney, Rick connected me with Smart Sharp, the kind of person who could see through the games. She'd researched Karen's history, 17 nearly identical cases in 3 years, all following the same script. Manufactured violations, escalating harassment property owners pressured until they sold. Martha laid out the proof my land had been purchased before Pine Hollow HOA even existed, which meant Karen had zero jurisdiction. Every notice, every fine, every claim, fake. That revelation snapped something inside me. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't stubborn, I was being hunted, and now I had a reason to fight. Karen, of course, doubled down. She called a community meeting packed with neighbors. She paraded architectural drawings, promised doubled property values, played videos of successful developments. Then she painted me as the villain. One man's selfish resistance can't be allowed to block progress for 50 families, she said, basking in applause. By the end of the night, people I'd waved at just days earlier looked at me like I was a threat to their wallets. The isolation was brutal. Right after that meeting, Martha pulled me aside with news that chilled me to the bone. Karen had already scheduled a demolition crew to take down my house that weekend. Fake permits, fake authority. Everything arranged to make it look legitimate. If I didn't stop her fast, I'd lose everything homeland and any chance to fight back. That's when the old builder in me woke up. I still had steel I-beams from my last big job. Rick stood by me despite the risks. "What did you have in mind?" he asked. "We spent nights welding, digging, disguising. We built a new gate, looked like cedar, but hidden inside was 2 inches of steel plate, anchored in reinforced concrete. Hinges rated 10 times stronger than normal. From the road, it looked ordinary, maybe even weak, but it could stop a freight train. 20 feet before the gate, we dug a fake pit trap, painted plywood to look like grass. Karen's arrogance is her weakness, I told Rick. She'll see the obvious trap, congratulate herself for being smarter, and steer right into the real one. We tested it with my pickup. Worked like a charm. The morning of the showdown, Karen made it a spectacle. She arrived not in her BMW, but a massive pickup with a steel brush guard leading a convoy of cars filled with neighbors, investors, even county officials. She wanted an audience for my humiliation. Cameras flashed. Karen raised her voice for all to hear. This is what happens when selfish individuals try to stand in the way of community progress. She spotted the fake pit, smirked, swerved wide, then floored it straight at my gate. The crash was biblical. The truck slammed into hidden steel folding like an accordion steam and coolant spraying into the sky. The unstoppable force met 30 years of construction expertise and lost. Karen's shocked voice carried across the field. This is impossible. I saw your trap. Dozens of phones recorded as she crawled from the wreckage. Designer clothes soaked in coolant mascara streaked her aura of invincibility, gone. And that's when Martha stepped out, flanked by county investigators. Thick folders of evidence in hand, she declared for all to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the woman who's been running a multi-county property theft scheme under the guise of community development. The crowd's mood flipped in seconds. Gasps, angry mutters, neighbors shaking their heads in disbelief. Documents were displayed, fake boards, forged letterheads, fraudulent fines. Karen's empire was smoke and mirrors, propped up by intimidation and lies. Officials stepped forward with arrest warrants. Even investors admitted they'd been duped. Cameras caught it all. Karen, the untouchable queen of Pine Hollow, standing humiliated beside her demolished truck as handcuffs clicked shut. That was the last morning she ever tried to ram my gate. And if there's one thing I learned from all this, it's simple. Never let fake authority convince you to surrender what's rightfully yours.